BuzzCity is here today at the Mercury Café with Belle Plaine, a singer-songwriter, musician from Regina. And Belle, you've been singing since you were quite young, and you later studied jazz at Grant MacEwan, and you worked, I think, in Calgary in the recording industry, did you not? And now you sing jazz in a way that merges old school kind of uptown style with other genres like folk and country. How much do you credit that training for your vocal style and technique?
At Grant MacEwan or just in general?
In general.
Well, I mean, all of your experiences culminate when you end up writing, so it all, I think, plays an equal part. Grant MacEwan sure drove me to jazz music in a way that I didn't expect. It just sort of peaked out over the years after I left. But yeah, I think it all added up to this album.
Okay. You've waitressed in Canada, and you've waitressed in Australia. In terms of waitressing, is there a difference between the two nations?
Australians don't tip. That would be the most major difference. Other than that, not really, no. Not when you get into major centers like that. Even the small places. I mean, a diner's a diner, I think, no matter where you go.
Yeah. The crowd different, the clientele different? Is there a qualitative difference?
I mean, there's a bit more sheen to being a Canadian when you're in Australia. And, I mean, if there's any warmth to be had from that from the average customer, I certainly exploited that when I was there. But other than that, no, I mean, people go out and eat all over the world, and I think you sort of, especially in nations like Australia and Canada, that are more or less the same culture in a lot of ways. You know, we take from the same cultural cues, so yeah, they're pretty interchangeable, which is why it was so easy to go over there and waitress.
How long did you do it?
Well, I was working under the table illegally, so I was only supposed to do it for 3 months, but I did it for more like 9, and then I got another job at another diner later on in my stay there. So it was about a year total that I was there.
Whereabouts in Australia was it?
I lived in Sydney for the most part, and then I moved out to the Blue Mountains, and that's west of Sydney by about 4 hours. I was working in a city called Katoomba. I think it's a city, it might be a town.
Okay. Your first CD, Hello from Belle Plaine, has more of a country folk flavor than Notes from a Waitress, which is more like, you know, finger food with scotch and soda. And was that a conscious decision? Is that how you see your music developing now?
Well, the genre switch was intentional, just because I had this group of songs, and they made a nice collection. And so when I divided them up, the albums were released within 8 months of one another. So when I divided up the material, I kept a lot of the folk stuff to the recording that Beth and I did together, because it seemed a more manageable project for me on my first CD. And I mean, it was all trial and error done by myself, me doing all of the research about how to make an album and how to print it, and just learning as I went. And so this album, Notes from a Waitress, there was a bit more under my belt to understand how to do it, and we got support from the Saskatchewan Arts Board, so I was able to go back to Grant MacEwan, to that group of people that I was friends with, and draw from them. So the whole album was like a college reunion for me. And I mean, I guess it was a conscious decision, but as far as a genre switch, I don't really see myself as having a particular genre that I'm settling into yet. Like, I think the stuff that I'm writing now for an upcoming album falls a lot more back into a more country feel, but I don't really know. I just like to sing. I don't really worry about genres.
Okay. You've got different people backing you on this album than you had on your first album. And can you talk to that a bit? Why did you go that route?
Yeah, the one connected tissue between both albums is Jeremy Sauer. He's a co-writer of mine. So a lot of the songs on the new album, I think 7 out of 9, we co-wrote together. And the other group of instrumentalists that I worked with, they're, as I said, all buddies from Grant McEwen. So the choice to go there and do the album was mainly based around our producer that we worked with there, who's another friend from Grant McEwen, and he's such a dream to work with. So we chose that studio first, and mostly because when we thought about the album and who we wanted to work with, they were all in Edmonton.
Can you talk about what you're covering at the at this event?
I just want to finish up about Chris. We've got Chris Craig on guitar, and we met in November at the CBC. So he's going to be coming out and playing guitar. And then the other players are locals like Shani Lambert from Pile of Bones Brass Band and Anna Rose, who sings backups with me, and she's going to come back and do some of the old stuff from the old album, and a new song that's not on the new album because I'm still road testing some new material, so she's going to come and sing with us on that. You're doing some old standards as well, right? Yeah, we're going to cover, what are we doing? We're going to do Fever by Peggy Lee and Bye Bye Blackbird, the way that Julie London covered it. So, yeah, and there'll be a few other little covers that are surprises, because it's nice to pull out the stuff that people know, and also to show where my influences come from.
And those are your primary influences?
Yeah. As far as singers, I love listening and watching Peggy Lee, or listening to and watching Peggy Lee, and Julie London. I mean, she's just so smoky and fun. I love her. And other lyrical influences. I don't think you can write songs in this day and age and say that you're not influenced by Tom Waits. I just think that.
Yes, and I noticed that influence in Notes from a Waitress as well.
Really?
Yes, or even Studs Turkel. Have you ever read Studs Turkel's working? It's quite a classic. He went basically through the whole gamut of professions and vocations in Chicago and profiled people in a sort of a capsule way. It's been influential on a lot of people, I think, including Tom Waits, but that's a guess. What have you got in the future? What's upcoming?
Just tour, hitting the road. I'm going to take a little bit of time off. We're doing a tour after the CD launch to Alberta and through Saskatchewan, and part of that is associated with an organization called OSAC, which is Saskatchewan-based, and it unites all of the small arts councils in Saskatchewan. So we're doing a little tour that was facilitated with them, and also some dates that we organized in Alberta. And that'll take us about into beginning of February. And then I'm gonna rest for a bit because it's been a busy 6 months here. And once I've got my stamina up, then we'll hit the road again in the summer and fall.